Hello, and welcome to the San Antonio Chamber of Commerce's Influencer Series, which is a spin-off of our highly successful Log In and Learn web series. My name is Richard Pettis, and I'm President and CEO of the San Antonio Chamber of Commerce. The Influencer Series is an intimate, thought-provoking discussion with prominent community leaders about the most crucial issues facing San Antonio. Our goal is to elevate policy discussions and to keep the community informed, which is, of course, extremely necessary in this day and age. Today's guest is our 2020 Chair of the Board, Adam Hamilton. Adam is going to speak to us a little bit about a number of issues, including research and innovation. Adam, welcome.
Thank you, Richard. Glad to be here.
We're thrilled. So now I'd like to introduce you, if that's okay. Adam Hamilton serves, Adam Hamilton serves as President and Chief Executive Officer of Southwest Research Institute, one of the nation's largest independent providers of advanced scientific and applied technology solutions. A not-for-loss organization, as he calls it, which conducts more than $500 million in research each year. The Institute provides solutions for problems encountered from deep sea to deep space and practically everywhere in between. Adam holds an MS degree in engineering and a BS degree in aerospace engineering, both from the University of Texas at Austin. He has been a professional engineer since 1993. His technical expertise includes engineering, science, and risk assessment. Adam, I can't tell you how excited I am to have you on our show. Thank you for joining us.
Glad to be here. Thank you for inviting me.
Excellent, excellent. Well, you lead a very, very important and unique organization, Southwest Research Institute, which many of us call SwRI. I'd like to start with a few questions just about, the organization itself, if that's okay.
Sure.
All right. Though headquartered in San Antonio, you have employees and projects across the U.S., China, and the United Kingdom. Please tell us about your, given all the things that you do, your location here, and then all the things that you're managing, worldwide. How do you do that? I mean, what's the complexity and how do you deal with, such a diverse portfolio of people and places?
Well, it's a great question, and it can be a challenge at times. Fortunately, most of our staff are located here in San Antonio. We have two offices, not bigger than San Antonio, but two other offices here in the United States that are relatively large. And we have multiple project offices around the country. We do have an affiliate in the United Kingdom and a joint venture in China. So managing those staff is a little bit simpler because they are mostly comprised of foreign nationals and managed by foreign nationals in country with ties then back to our offices here in San Antonio. So here in the United States, it's where it's a little more challenging. We have leaders in all of our remote offices and our two large offices outside of San Antonio. And really what we found is that to be successful at managing the people and providing leadership, we have to have a very cooperative leadership team. So we've been blessed. We see it here, particularly now during this pandemic event, that we have very skilled leaders and managers at all of our locations and at multiple levels in the organization. So that's really what has made our success possible.
Excellent, excellent. So how have y'all managed through the pandemic? Are you still getting your work done? I mean, what are some of the protocols and, the distancing and all that sort of thing?
Well, we started early when it first became evident that there was a pandemic coming. We started gathering information and doing research. A lot of my technical background and some of my technical interests are in the areas of epidemiology and pandemics. So we had some background knowledge about what to do. In fact, I wrote some of the pandemic preparedness plans for the state of Texas and a couple of counties in Texas many, many years ago.
Is that right?
So,
wow.
Yeah, Bell County in particular. So we started by just trying to provide as much information as we could to our staff, just to educate them on this. And as it became more and more evident that this would turn from an outbreak in Wuhan, China, to an epidemic and ultimately to a pandemic, we started pretty early, in fact, deciding how we would try to distance our staff, create remote work environments where many of them could be successful. And we did that, and it worked well early. We started with a smaller number of people that let us really try out all of our different systems and work through some of the details and issues.
Sure.
How do we take computers home? How do we order more computers, laptops in particular, so people could work from home? But you did say we are an applied research organization. What that means is that we can't do everything that we do at home. So
Yeah.
fortunately, we were characterized as an essential organization, an essential business. So we designated many of our staff as being on-site staff or on-site personnel that really were needed here on campus and at some of our other locations to do the work that we do for our clients, both government and commercial, that was critical to continue during the pandemic. So it's kind of hit a steady state now. We kind of ramped it up. So at one point in time, we had about 40% of our staff working exclusively from remote locations, primarily their homes. We had about 35% of our staff that were designated on-site persons. We were able to eventually get that down to about 30% for a while.
Okay.
And then the rest were kind of in the middle ground. They would spend most of their time working at remote locations, but they'd have to come in to do something, to check an experiment or to pick up data or something like that. So they were kind of back and forth, but primarily at remote locations. And we found it to be very effective for getting work done. There are things that indeed suffer in that kind of environment. Just the collaboration, the teamwork, the sense of camaraderie is harder to accomplish when we're working remotely like this. But all in all, it's been pretty successful.
Well, I can tell you, my staff is much smaller than yours. We have 22 people, including me here, all of us working from home, although I've been coming into the office because it's empty. And indeed, we have lost a lot of that closeness of staff, although we're still productive. I can tell you that. We're still cranking out the work and, we're doing what we need to do, but there is just a warmth and a sense of community, I think, that we've lost a little bit. And I can't wait till the day when we get back together and kind of see each other in the office and have that interaction. Very important. So y'all's work is largely based on project demand from government and private sector. Tell me a little bit about some of the notable things that you all have done, some of the findings that have come out of your research since you've opened the doors, baby, way back in 1947.
Yeah, 1947 was a long time ago, and our history of technical accomplishments goes back that far. What we like to say now is that we do everything, like you said earlier, from deep sea to deep space and practically everywhere in between. And while that may sound like hyperbole or exaggeration, it's really not. In the 1960s, we developed the pressure hull for the Alvin submarine, one of the world's deepest diving submarines. We actually designed the pressure hull, built it, and tested it right here in San Antonio.
Wow.
Then that submarine was updated.
Deep hole there at the facility.
We do. Now, it's not as deep as the ocean, but it is a very deep hole, reinforced lining and sides. And what we can do is fill it with water, condition the water with chemicals, salts, and change the temperature, then also pressurize it so that it emulates those very deep environments.
Wow.
So we were able to do all that here on campus back in the 60s.
Wow.
And then in 2014, the Alvin submarine was upgraded to give it more depth capacity, increase the size of the submarine, including the pressure hull, add more viewing ports. So we stepped up again and designed the new pressure hull for the Alvin submarine, and also constructed that pressure hull here on campus.
Wow.
So that's pretty deep sea. Now, we also do a lot of work in other deep sea areas to include oil and gas and develop safety valves and fittings and piping and tubes and other apparatus for other deep sea work and other deep sea experiments. And in the deep space side, we do a lot of true deep space work. We work a lot with telescopes. We have a lot of astronomers on staff doing deep space discovery and characterization and research. And then in other space activities, we do some things closer to Earth, like Earth orbiting satellites and satellite systems. But some of our space programs that have gotten the most attention recently include the New Horizons mission, which you might recall flew by Pluto in 2015. And then on New Year's Day of 2019, it flew by another object that's 1 billion miles beyond Pluto, and it's called Aerocoth. It's what's called a Kuiper Belt object. And together in 2015, then again in 2019, these were humankind's most distant explorations of an object ever. So we set a record in 2015, then broke our own record in 2019.
Wow.
And that relatively small spacecraft is powered by a radioisotopic thermal generator, and it's still going over 32,000 miles per hour.
Oh my
And
God.
it has more adventure ahead of it. One of our other missions that's been in the news quite a bit is our Juno mission, which is orbiting Jupiter. We are just about to complete a very thorough mapping of Jupiter, both photographic and with other types of sensors. And it's returned some incredible results about Jupiter. So, like New Horizons has really rewritten the book about Pluto, the Juno mission has added a lot of depth and detail to what we already knew about Jupiter, and it continues on its mission as well.
Fascinating
So,
stuff. Fascinating stuff.
yeah, and then in between, in the early days of the Institute, we were doing a lot of agricultural research. More recently, we've moved on to things like robotics, where we're currently building the world's largest mobile robot right here in San Antonio. We've developed the world's most fuel-efficient four-cylinder gasoline and diesel engines right here in San Antonio. We've developed the best nerve agent antidotes for the U.S. military right here in San Antonio.
Wow.
We continue to work on pharmaceuticals and vaccines, electric power. We're building a demonstration power plant here on campus that I think will be a real paradigm shift in the way we generate electricity in this country. We can generate electricity more efficiently and with a smaller footprint than a typical power generation facility. So our research continues in many different areas to include transportation, where we now operate the intelligent transportation systems in 12 states and in parts of others. We continue to work on fuels and lubricants research. We do some work for the Department of Defense and law enforcement communities as well. We do a lot of work for the U.S. Defense Services in terms of radars and antennas, and also some of our allies. And we do a lot of work in materials, where we work on different types of coatings and engineering designs. So it's a playground for technical people, for nerds like myself, and we really have a good time when we can be on campus.
I love that. It's a playground. It sounds like a playground. You know, one of the things that I've grown to enjoy immensely has been going to y'all's annual meetings, Adam, to hear what you've talked about, but maybe in a little more depth, right, where you go to lay out 5 or 6 or 8 things over the course of a morning. And my God, it's fascinating. And it's just so exciting to be in the room to learn and to see and to think that it's right here in little old San Antonio, Texas, right? That's the beauty of everything, I think.
Yeah, it really is incredible. It's I've been here as CEO for almost 6 years now. I've been attending the annual meeting since 2000 or 2001.
Okay.
And every time I'm just amazed, even now, where I see what's happening every day, when I hear the researchers get up and talk about their projects and their accomplishments, it still gives me goosebumps. And I still have to pinch myself sometimes to know that I really am here at Southwest Research Institute, having the opportunity and the honor to lead this great organization.
Good for you. That's awesome. Hey, one of the things that I didn't ask you, tell me about the footprint of your facility where you're at right now. I know it's pretty sprawling, and you got a lot of folks there.
We do. In total, we have over 1,500 acres here at our main San Antonio campus. We also have a location down by the railroad in downtown San Antonio, where we do locomotive research. It's called our Locomotive Technology Center. And we have 2 other field ranges or test ranges that are outside of San Antonio. So quite a big footprint here in the San Antonio area. We have in total about between 2,850 and 2,900 staff members.
Wow.
And the majority of those are here in San Antonio. About 2,400 are here in San Antonio, and 2,300 to 2,350 work here on our main campus on Culebra Road on the west side.
Well, that's a pretty big organization. So congratulations for, keeping your handle on all of it and cranking out the work. Very, very important. So let's shift a little bit about collaboration and innovation. As you well know, San Antonio is known. One of our strengths is that we are a research community strengthened by its collaborative work. You have frequent meetings with the president of the Health Science Center, UTSA, and Texas Biomed. Tell us a little bit about how that started and what your goals are, and any plans that you might share with us.
I sure will. I don't know if you know this or not, but before coming to the Institute, I ran a subsidiary of the Institute that started in 2001 up in Austin.
I am
And
aware. You mentioned
I've
that.
always, yeah, I've always been a collaborator. But when I came to San Antonio, I was totally encouraged and enthused because the culture here is so much different. I would say better, but I might offend some people. The San Antonio culture is all about collaboration. How can you help other people? And shortly after I came, I was able to meet Dr. Bill Henrich at UT Health San Antonio. And Bill welcomed me with open arms back in the days when we could. He actually gave me a hug when I got here and offered anything that he could do to help. And so that really started the journey of collaboration that I've enjoyed here in San Antonio. So Bill and I became friends, and we are to this day. And then I sit on the Texas Biomed Advisory Trustee Board, and I was fortunate enough to be able to be part of the interview process and interviewed Larry Schlesinger, Dr. Larry Schlesinger,
Yes, of course.
when before he came to Texas Biomed. So Larry and I have been acquainted for quite some time now, and I also was able to get very close with Taylor Amy. And what's wonderful about it is that the four of us are friends. So we enjoy just getting together for the sake of getting together. And we also bring our spouses. Before the pandemic, we were actually we had like a dinner group where we go to each other's homes with our spouses and enjoy dinner. And we carve out some time to talk about business in the evening as well. But the four of us can do amazing things just because we do collaborate so well. We work well together. It's really amazing. I see an agenda that we may put together with a list of things we're trying to accomplish, and that might normally take an hour to 2 hours with a group that doesn't work together so well. And frankly, we can get through that kind of agenda in about 15 or 20 minutes because we all speak our mind, and most importantly, we all trust each other, and we really want each other to succeed. And we know that collectively, if we collaborate and work together, we have the best chance of succeeding. So we're all about collaborating and working together. And it's produced some great results already.
That's great. So what are some of the things that y'all have been able that is yielded as a result of this collaboration?
Well, we've done a lot of things. We work together very well on projects, so we get external funding from government clients or commercial clients. We always try to engage the other organizations in that work that we do. And then last year, we actually created a virtual organization. We call it the San Antonio Partnership for Precision Therapeutics.
Right.
I'll call it the SAPPT for short.
Okay.
And the idea behind this was to take the resources, the skills, the knowledge and expertise of all four organizations and make those available in a virtual organization. And there's really nothing like that in the United States. If you combine all of those skill sets, all of the capabilities, nobody can touch what we can do collectively through this virtual organization. So we started it last year. We funded it ourselves, and we've awarded some research projects that typically include researchers from all four organizations in a project. When the COVID pandemic really became reality for us, we carved out more funding to fund a vaccine development program that involves researchers from all four organizations. That's just funded by the San Antonio Partnership. And then I'm also very happy to I guess note, it's already been announced that the SAPPT has received a $1 million grant from the USAA Foundation here in San Antonio.
Wonderful.
And so the four of us are working together to figure out the best way to invest that money in research that will all be focused on the COVID pandemic and resolution thereof.
That's wonderful. Well, and so since we're on the COVID thing, I know that you have talked about a lot of the work that you're doing, as an institute, Southwest Research Institute, but now with these other groups. Tell me a little bit about just your knowledge of it. You mentioned some things, when we've talked in previous conversations about the strains, and I mean, it is really a complex issue. Can you touch a little bit on that just for the folks at home so they can understand that this is a hard deal?
Yeah, it is. The SARS coronavirus 2, which is the causative agent of COVID disease, COVID-19, is it's an evolved virus. It's a beta coronavirus. It's similar to other viruses that we've seen, like SARS in particular, but it's just a little bit different. But what's been amazing is how the international community and the domestic community have really all collaborated to collect an incredible amount of information about this very, very small virus. Every country that I know of is sharing information that they gather about the virus. We very quickly got an idea of what the virus looked like. And while its physical appearance is not really that interesting, the way it's structured is, because it has some potentially vulnerable locations on the virus that we can try to attack, so to speak, with different therapies and with vaccines that are under development right now. And the good thing is these vulnerable spots tend to be conserved. That is, as this virus continues to mutate a little bit, the really targeted areas where we have the most success haven't been mutating. So that means that if we develop a therapeutic or a vaccine that's effective against the virus, it's likely to have some effect for a long time. We hope it will provide some effect for years to come.
So its flank, if you will, is continued to be uncovered, if you will, by the virus itself, because I guess it's just the way it's mutating.
Yeah, it's very common for viruses to mutate. They're not really living organisms. They're not part of the kingdom of life.
Okay.
And that is because they actually have to infect another cell to reproduce. That kind of defines what's in the kingdom of life and what's not. If it can reproduce within its own species, then it's alive. But a virus can't. If you just put a virus somewhere, it's going to eventually become non-viable. Some people might say die, because it can't reproduce. And really, they can be very fragile. Now, the SARS coronavirus 2, the causative agent of COVID-19, is a little hardy. It's what's called a single-stranded RNA virus, and it will degrade given some time, and in different conditions, it degrades pretty quickly. But we know that simple actions like using soap and water to wash your hands actually deactivates the virus. It makes it so it's no longer viable. So that's why that's such an important thing for all of us to continue doing, is to wash our hands. My hands get chapped, but you also have to be very careful, because if your skin gets dried and starts cracking, you may become susceptible to other conditions or other bacteria, or not other bacteria, but bacteria, in fact, that could cause you issues. So also condition your hands. And while that doesn't sound like something that probably you or I are used to doing, it's something that we really need to do to stay in time.
I'm starting today.
Yeah.
Great. So tell me, what are your thoughts on the availability of a vaccine? I mean, given what your view.
Well, my formal education is in engineering, but as I mentioned, I've done some pretty big projects where epidemiology and vaccine development were involved. And if you ask a traditionalist, somebody who may have been developing vaccines for decades, I think you're likely to get a more pessimistic view on the future of a vaccine for COVID-19. That's because typically the processes that we have to go through are long, and they're all done in series. So there is just a long time that has to happen where we identify what components might be in the vaccine. We have to test the vaccine. We have to make sure it's effective. We have to make sure it's safe. We have to put it into animals and see how that works, and then go through human trials. So those things take a long time. It can be 10 years before a good vaccine develops. And in some cases, we never really can get a good vaccine. Like if you think about about AIDS, for example, the virus that causes AIDS is something that's been very difficult for us to create a vaccine for. Fortunately, the coronavirus is something that I think we will be able to develop a vaccine for. And I think the traditional vaccine development person that may have this pessimistic view about how long it will take may be really surprised about how quickly we can get this done now. Technology is advanced. We have different gene editing tools that we can use to create viruses. And most importantly, we're all collaborating and working together. There's probably over 100 different vaccines that are in development stages around the world right now. In China, in fact, there is one that has been tested in non-human primates. And as you probably have heard in news, we're doing some inhuman testing here in the United States. So I think we're going to actually get to the point where we have some good good vaccine candidates in the next couple of months.
All right.
And at least one manufacturer has decided to go ahead and invest in production of a vaccine so that when it does get proved to be something that will be useful, they'll be ready with lots and lots of doses. So I think my best guess is, my hope is that by the end of this calendar year, we'll actually have some vaccines, probably at least one, that will be ready for use. And I think that early on in 2021, we'll probably have some other options available in vaccines, which are good to have options because we'll be able to get different protection levels and we'll kind of hedge our bets, if you
Sure.
will, and have multiple vaccines that can be produced and administered to people. So eventually, between hopefully the immunities that we have developing in our community right now as people are exposed, and when you add that to the immunity that comes from the vaccines, we should reach a point where we have herd immunity, where we'll actually be able to control this virus and it won't be an everyday threat.
That's wonderful. Well, it's encouraging too, of course, as someone who loves this community and is all about wanting to continue to have it grow and protect our families. That's music to all of our ears, I'm certain. One of the things that I didn't ask you when we talked about just your facility and your workforce, you've mentioned to me the number of PhDs and folks with higher level degrees. Can you touch on that? Because I was just taken aback when you told me, some months ago.
It's been a while since I checked, but we have probably 300 or more PhDs on staff. Yeah, it's a great organization. We have a lot of people with other advanced degrees. We also have people with bachelor's degrees, and then we have a tremendous group of people that are high school diplomas. We have people of all different educational levels here at the Institute. And what I love about this organization is there's no hierarchy. It's all about the people and the personal relationships. So everybody works together. We have, for example, we have our own cafe here on campus. We have our own machine shops. And those people get the same amount of respect and consideration as maybe a PhD that's internationally known for their particular area of research. So it's a great environment. It's an environment where everybody has the opportunity to thrive. And COVID-19, while quite tragic, has really kind of lit the fire under a lot of us to do more collaboration and advance and push new areas of technology and research to try to get to some solutions that we can use quickly. We also are working on therapeutics now. I didn't get to talk about that much yet, but the therapeutic versus a vaccine. The vaccine is a disease preventative. A therapeutic is used to either treat a disease,
Okay.
if you have it, or in some cases, it can be used as a prophylaxis. So you can take it before you get the disease. And then if you get the disease, the idea is that it would minimize its potential bad effects on you.
Got it. Interesting. And so you're doing a lot of that there too, and it's moving forward in a good way?
Yes, it is. We have some of our scientists in our pharmaceuticals development area many years ago, well, several years ago, developed a software program that we call Rhodium. And it's been in a couple of international competitions now to compare it against other software programs of the same design, where what we do is try to identify small molecules, that is, molecules that we can make, like in a pharmaceutical. We can identify the small molecules that will effectively bind to certain locations on a protein or a protein structure. Now that we know the protein structure of the SARS coronavirus 2, we've been able to, here just on our own, without somebody else funding it, we were able to scan over 2 million pharmaceutical compounds and identify many of them that are potentially effective against COVID-19. So when DoD saw that, they actually invited us and they funded us to put that software program on one of their supercomputers called Onyx. And they also gave us access to the entire DoD library of pharmaceuticals, which was over 40 million drugs.
Gosh.
And we screened all of those in about a week's time.
Wow.
Now, the ones that we screened here, we actually have been procuring those pharmaceuticals and working with Texas Biomed to test those to see about their safety and efficacy against COVID-19 at Texas Biomedical Research Institute. And the ones that we identified for the DoD are going to a DoD laboratory for additional follow-up. So all in all, we've got hundreds of potential pharmaceutical solutions that are in testing right now.
Wow, that's exciting.
It
So
is, it's
attacking
fun.
it from every single way, which is great, right?
Yeah.
Need to have a lot of different weapons in the arsenal to be able to deal with these kinds of things. So, Adam, there's been talk. So luckily, we're trending correctly as far as COVID-19 cases seem to be going down. You know, the social distancing, you know, the stay safe, work home, all those things have really helped, I think, a lot. But there still is talk of a potential, you know, another outbreak, you know, another spike in the COVID. What are your thoughts about that? Do you think that might happen, and do you think we're prepared?
Well, I certainly think we're better prepared if that does happen. And frankly, a second wave and even a third wave or subsequent waves are a possibility that has happened before in known history. And some of the models predict that we might see that. But if you think back about where we started when COVID-19 first hit, we're very aloof almost about the virus and what the pandemic could do. So social distancing was something we never thought we'd have to do.
Yeah.
Wearing a face covering is something we never thought we'd have to do. Instructing people to wash their hands more often is something we didn't think we'd have to do. People asking for and using great quantities of hand sanitizers, all these different things that have evolved. And so we don't have to go through that kind of learning process again, first of all. So I think all of us, every citizen, all of us in San Antonio are more cognizant of these practices that really help minimize the spread of disease. Then you add on top of that the potential for therapeutics that will be ready by the time we might have a second or third wave, and potentially even vaccine candidates by that time. I think the second and third waves, if they do come, will be much easier to handle. Now, that's easy to say for somebody, you know, if you're not involved personally,
Sure.
it will still be tough. It could still be tough for individuals who may be involved in the second or third wave. But as a population, I think we'll be much better able to address the concerns and stop the spread of the disease quicker.
That's wonderful. Well, that's encouraging. And I think it's so logical the way you've laid it out. You know, someone like me that's not in your business doesn't think about these things and can't put the elements together to look at it that way. So this is helpful, just as the president of the chamber who talks to a ton of people. This can give me now some ammunition to say, hey, it could happen, but hey, by the way, I think we might be prepared, or certainly much more prepared, as you've said.
Yeah, much better prepared.
That's great. That's great. So let's shift a little bit more. So at the Chamber Gala, when you took over the reins as our chair, you issued a clear call to the business community to cultivate a culture of support for the pursuit of education among their employees. Given the broad impact of this pandemic, do you think the role of business in education has changed?
Well, I think if anything, it's more important now. Unfortunately, we've seen that some sectors of our economy, particularly here in San Antonio, have been hit harder than others.
Mm-hmm.
You know, the service industries, the tourism industry have all been hit very hard. And I've always been a proponent of education because I think education makes better employees, even if all the skills that they may learn aren't put to use in their day-to-day functions. I think it gives them a different perspective and a different way to solve problems. So in my experience and my opinion, people with education tend to do better, tend to adapt more quickly. And obviously that's something we have to do right now. We have to adapt very quickly. It's really it's almost fun to watch the way that capitalism is at work and the creativity that people have coming up with new ideas to do everything from deliver pizza to now give haircuts and such. It's really amazing to watch what people can do. But for business, things have really changed. We have to look now for people. We have to look inside at our own people and provide additional educational opportunities for them so they can be more flexible and adapt more to what may be a new economy. Now, people have talked about what things may look like after the pandemic. I don't really know yet, but I can say with some certainty that it's going to be different. Things like this, like having
Yeah.
a WebEx.
Hmm.
I don't know about you, but I get tired of sitting in on WebEx conferences now because 4 or 5 a day.
Yeah, I do
Um,
too.
and just the information technology infrastructure, the ability to manipulate the applications and do different things. I was on one WebEx today where they were introducing a new application where you can share Post-it notes on the screen and do all different kinds of things. It's a whole different environment, and we need an educated workforce to be able to help us succeed in this new economy. So I think it's still incumbent upon the business community to do all we can to assist, to provide the educational opportunities for our constituents, for the citizens of San Antonio, because as you've already said, we all love this community and there's so much untapped potential in it that if we continue to step up and provide educational opportunities and promote education, both as a culture and as a reality by facilitating the ways that they can get education, we're all going to benefit from it in the end. So short answer is yes, more than ever, the business community needs to support education initiatives.
Excellent, excellent. Well, we're coming to the end of our time together. So one last question. So there are a lot of people talking about how this quick shift to embrace and utilize technology will usher in a new use of artificial intelligence. And we've been talking about artificial intelligence a lot about in a whole bunch of different ways. But they're saying it's going to be much sooner, much broader. What are your thoughts about the future of artificial intelligence and the impact it will have on our workforce?
Well, we've been involved in artificial intelligence and machine learning, AI and ML. It goes by a lot of other different names as well. We've been using AI and ML in some of our traffic management applications. You might recall that 2 years ago, I think, we actually won a AI ML medical diagnostic competition. We were able to provide the best breast cancer tissue diagnoses, or looking at the pathology of some slides from breast cancer victims and identify the cancer cells in that with the accuracy that matched the best pathologist in the world. But the
Wow.
difference is we can do it a lot faster and we can do it 24 hours a day.
Uh,
So it has fantastic uses there that were already underway before this pandemic hit. So I'm not real sure how AI and machine learning will be used in the new economy that may be coming, but it was already going to be used in many other areas before. So I think we'll continue to see the growth of applications in artificial intelligence and machine learning and like technologies. And again, that adds to the education of the workforce. Now, not everybody needs to be a computer scientist or
sure.
theorist and have the ability to develop AI or machine learning techniques, but it's going to take educated persons and creative persons to figure out the best ways to use these new technologies for the maximum benefit of humankind. And I think education is the route to get those people fired up about using AI and ML to accomplish more tasks in this new economy more effectively and more efficiently.
Mr. Chairman, I think no truer words I've ever heard out of anybody's mouth than yours. It's all about all of us working together. And by the way, you talked a little bit earlier about the fact that everybody is treated the same at Southwest Research Institute, from the cafeteria worker to the craftsman to the PhD. And I think those are also very true words. Having now had the pleasure and honor of working with you and for you as chairman of the board of the chamber and me as CEO, you are such a nice, collaborative, straightforward person. And that means a lot to me as someone that's dealing with the politics of all that we do. There's really, it's hard to find room for egos, and you don't have one. And that has made my job so much easier. So in the most sincerest terms I can say, thank you. You have been a fantastic chairman. You've been a great friend, and you're an amazing CEO of an amazing organization.
Thank you, Richard. I hope this camera didn't pick up red because I'm probably blushing. I feel blessed to be where I am. I'm fortunate. Like I said, I have to pinch myself sometimes because I'm surrounded by just fantastic people, and that includes you. And I also want to just to tell you and to tell our listening and viewing audience what a great job you have done and all of your staff at the chamber. I have I've been again just amazed at the kinds of things that you're able to do and the response. You pivoted the entire chamber organization to provide just what our members and the business community needs during this pandemic time. And you've done it better than anybody else I've seen. So I'd like to commend you. Thank you again for all that you're doing for the city and your staff. And also to back at you, I have an incredible amount of respect for what you do. You are so articulate, well-informed, and connected in this business community. You make a great, big difference. And I'm happy to be a part of the organization for another 6 months as the chair and continue beyond that.
Well, thank you, Adam. So with that, we're going to go ahead and close the show. I want to thank everybody for joining us. And please remember, as Adam just said, we are a resource to you. We stood up a rapid response website for anything and everything related to COVID. It's called sachamberrapidresponse.org. Ton of information there, how to apply for dollars from the federal government to deal with, declining revenues, you name it, it's in there. And then I'll say a final word about the census. We are in the midst of filling out our census. The 2020 census is this community's opportunity to be able to get ourselves counted so that as resources become available from the federal government, and they are available, and we need them. But the only way we're going to get our fair share is if we fill out our census. So all of you CEOs, anybody within earshot, please fill out your census if you haven't done so. And if you have, please encourage your friends, family, coworkers, anybody that you know to fill out your census. It's important, it makes a big difference, and it's what we need in order for us to continue to thrive and succeed as a community. And with that, ladies and gentlemen, we'll close the show and say thank you from all of us here at the Chamber of Commerce. Have a wonderful day. Be safe.